Close your eyes and let me tell you about the quietest places in the universe where nothing much happens at all. Space is mostly empty, not the exciting kind of empty, but the vast, stretching nothing kind of empty, where particles drift so far apart they might never meet another particle in their entire existence. Between galaxies, there are regions so devoid of matter that you could travel for millions of years without encountering a single atom. These cosmic voids are the true deserts of the universe, where time passes without event or witness. The temperature of empty space hovers just above absolute zero. It sits there, unchanging and constant, like a frozen lake that never thaws. This cold is not the dramatic freezing cold of winter storms, but rather a quiet absence of heat that has persisted since the beginning of time. Nothing burns here, and nothing freezes, because there is simply nothing to change temperature at all. Photons travel through space at the speed of light, but from their perspective, no time passes at all. A photon born in a distant star billions of years ago experiences its entire journey instantaneously. It crosses the gulf between galaxies in what feels like no time whatsoever. This is the strange reality of light itself, where the journey and the arrival happen in the same eternal moment. Dust particles in space tumble slowly through the void. They are not rushing anywhere or colliding with purpose. These tiny grains of rock and ice simply exist in the darkness, turning gently as they drift. Some of them have been tumbling for longer than Earth has existed, and they will continue tumbling long after Earth is gone. Their journey has no destination and no urgency. The surface of the moon is covered in a fine powder that has been accumulating for billions of years. This lunar dust is so fine that it sticks to everything and gets into every crevice, but it does so silently, without wind to blow it around. The dust simply settles and resettles under the gentle touch of micrometeorite impacts that happen too slowly for any eye to perceive. Asteroids drift in their orbits, following paths that were set in motion when the solar system was young. They do not hurry, and they do not slow down. Their orbits are predictable to the point of being mundane. Year after year, they circle the sun in the same elliptical paths, like commuters on an eternal route that never changes. The clouds of Venus rotate around the planet faster than the planet itself rotates. This creates a strange atmospheric phenomenon where the weather moves, but the ground beneath stays relatively still. The thick sulfuric acid clouds churn slowly in their superrotation, driven by forces that operate on timescales far beyond human perception. Dark matter makes up most of the mass in the universe, but it does nothing interesting. It does not emit light or absorb light or interact with regular matter in any noticeable way. It simply exists in vast, invisible halos around galaxies, providing gravitational structure without fanfare. Dark matter is the ultimate background presence, holding everything together while remaining completely undetectable. Neutron stars rotate rapidly, but some of them barely rotate at all compared to their faster cousins. These slow rotators are just dense spheres of neutrons sitting in space, not bothering anyone. They have crushed all their matter into an impossibly tight ball, and now they simply exist as the densest objects that are not black holes. Their surfaces are smooth and featureless, with nothing to break the monotony. The solar wind is a stream of particles flowing out from the sun, but in the grand scheme of space, it is barely a breeze. These particles spread out across the solar system, becoming more and more dilute until they are indistinguishable from the general background of space. The solar wind does not roar or howl, but rather whispers as it dissipates into nothing. Gas clouds in space are mostly hydrogen.
This hydrogen sits there in enormous, diffuse clouds that stretch across light years of space. These clouds are so thin that they would be considered a perfect vacuum by Earth standards, yet they are dense compared to the emptiness between them. The gas atoms in these clouds move slowly and randomly, colliding so infrequently that each atom is essentially alone. Cosmic background radiation fills all of space with a faint glow that is almost perfectly uniform. This radiation is the leftover heat from the Big Bang, cooled down to just a few degrees above absolute zero. It bathes everything in a dim microwave light that cannot be seen by human eyes. This background radiation is the ultimate white noise of the universe, constant and unchanging. The Oort cloud is a theoretical shell of icy objects surrounding the solar system at an incredible distance. These objects are so far away that they barely feel the pull of the sun. They orbit in slow motion, taking thousands or millions of years to complete a single revolution. Nothing much happens in the Oort cloud because everything is too spread out and too cold to interact. Moons orbit their planets with mechanical regularity. Take any moon of Jupiter or Saturn, and you will find it following the same path over and over again. These moons are locked in gravitational dances that have been choreographed by physics, and they will continue these dances for billions of years without variation. The orbits are stable and predictable, which means they are fundamentally uneventful. Space is filled with magnetic fields that stretch and twist, but do so on timescales that make them essentially static. The magnetic field lines of the galaxy spiral slowly outward, carried by the rotation of galactic matter. These fields guide charged particles along invisible highways, but the particles move so slowly through space that their journey takes millions of years. The atmospheres of gas giants are layered like an onion with different compositions at different depths. These layers sit on top of each other in stable configurations, rarely mixing or churning.
Except in localized storm systems, most of the atmosphere is just sitting there under enormous pressure, gradually getting denser as you go deeper. Nothing dramatic happens in these layers because the pressure and temperature gradients are so smooth. Rocky planets cool slowly over billions of years. Their cores gradually release heat into space through the insulating layers of mantle and crust. This cooling process is so slow that it might as well be not happening at all from a human perspective. The planets will remain warm inside for eons to come, slowly radiating away their primordial heat. Comets spend most of their time in the outer solar system, where it is too cold for their ices to sublimate. During these long periods between solar approaches, the comets are just frozen chunks of ice and rock drifting in the darkness. They're inactive and unchanging, waiting for their next pass near the sun, which might not come for decades or centuries. The space between stars in a galaxy is vast and mostly empty. Even in the densest parts of the galactic disk, stars are separated by distances that would take years to cross at the speed of light. In this interstellar medium, there is very little to encounter. A spacecraft could travel for years without passing anything larger than a dust grain. Gravitational waves ripple through space-time at the speed of light, but they are so weak that they barely disturb anything. These waves are produced by massive cosmic events like colliding black holes, but by the time they reach Earth, they're just tiny vibrations in the fabric of space itself. Most gravitational waves pass through us completely unnoticed because they interact so weakly with matter. The tails of comets always point away from the sun due to solar wind and radiation pressure. This creates a predictable pattern where the tail follows the comet as it approaches the sun and then leads the comet as it moves away. This process has been happening for as long as comets have existed, and it will continue happening with the same regularity for as long as the sun shines.
Lunar Maria are vast plains of solidified lava that have been frozen in place for billions of years. These dark patches on the Moon are the result of ancient volcanic eruptions that filled impact basins with molten rock. The lava cooled and hardened and has remained unchanged ever since. Nothing grows on these plains and nothing erodes them because the Moon has no atmosphere or water. The rotation of galaxies takes hundreds of millions of years to complete. Stars in the spiral arms orbit the galactic center at different speeds, creating the spiral pattern, but any individual star might take 250 million years to complete one orbit. This rotation is so slow that from any human timescale, the galaxy appears frozen in place. Ice on the surfaces of outer solar system moons can remain unchanged for geological ages. The moons of Jupiter and Saturn are covered in water ice that is as hard as rock at those temperatures. This ice is so cold that it does not melt or flow or change in any noticeable way. It simply exists as a frozen landscape that has looked the same for billions of years.
The light from distant galaxies has been traveling through space for so long that the galaxies we see no longer exist in that form. We are seeing ancient light from a time when the universe was younger. This light has been journeying through expanding space for billions of years and will continue traveling forever into the cosmic future. The light itself experiences no time and carries information from an era that is long past. Planetary rings are made of countless small particles, each in its own orbit around the planet. These particles collide gently with each other over time, but the overall structure of the rings remains stable for millions of years. The rings do not suddenly collapse or disperse, but instead maintain their form through a balance of gravitational forces and orbital mechanics. Brown dwarfs are failed stars that never got quite massive enough to sustain nuclear fusion. They glow dimly from leftover heat and slowly cool over time, becoming darker and darker. These objects are neither stars nor planets, but something in between, existing in a twilight state of gradual cooling. They will eventually become cold, dark objects that emit no light at all. The vacuum of space contains virtual particles that pop into existence and then annihilate almost immediately. This quantum foam is a feature of empty space itself, where the uncertainty principle allows temporary violations of energy conservation. These virtual particles exist for such a brief moment that they have no observable effect on anything. They are the ultimate ephemeral existence, flickering in and out of reality. Planetary surfaces are bombarded by cosmic rays, which are high-energy particles from space. These particles strike the surface atoms and slowly alter the chemical composition of the top layer of soil. This space weathering happens so gradually that it would take millions of years to notice any change. The surface simply ages quietly under this constant, invisible rain. The light from distant galaxies has been traveling through space for so long that the galaxies we see no longer exist in that form. We are seeing ancient light from a time when the universe was younger. This light has been journeying through expanding space for billions of years and will continue traveling forever into the cosmic future. The light itself experiences no time and carries information from an era that is long past. Planetary rings are made of countless small particles, each in its own orbit around the planet. These particles collide gently with each other over time, but the overall structure of the rings remains stable for millions of years. The rings do not suddenly collapse or disperse, but instead maintain their form through a balance of gravitational forces and orbital mechanics. Brown dwarfs are failed stars that never got quite massive enough to sustain nuclear fusion. They glow dimly from leftover heat and slowly cool over time, becoming darker and darker.
These objects are neither stars nor planets, but something in between, existing in a twilight state of gradual cooling. They will eventually become cold, dark objects that emit no light at all. The vacuum of space contains virtual particles that pop into existence and then annihilate almost immediately. This quantum foam is a feature of empty space itself, where the uncertainty principle allows temporary violations of energy conservation. These virtual particles exist for such a brief moment that they have no observable effect on anything. They are the ultimate ephemeral existence, flickering in and out of reality. Planetary surfaces are bombarded by cosmic rays, which are high-energy particles from space. These particles strike the surface atoms and slowly alter the chemical composition of the top layer of soil. This space weathering happens so gradually that it would take millions of years to notice any change. The surface simply ages quietly under this constant, invisible rain.
The day length on Venus is longer than its year because the planet rotates so slowly on its axis. This creates a situation where the sun rises very slowly and takes an extraordinarily long time to cross the sky. If you were standing on Venus, you could watch the sun move at a pace slower than an hour hand on a clock. Time itself seems to stretch out on this slowly rotating world. Gravitational equilibrium points, called Lagrange points, are locations where the gravitational forces of two bodies balance out. Objects placed at these points tend to stay there without being pulled toward either body. These are the quiet spots in orbital mechanics, where motion cancels out and stability reigns. Nothing much happens at Lagrange points because they are defined by their lack of net force. The solar system is moving through the galaxy at hundreds of kilometers per second, but this motion is imperceptible from our perspective. We are all traveling through space together, with the sun and planets maintaining their relative positions. This journey through the galaxy takes millions of years to cover significant distances. From inside the solar system, it appears that we are stationary, even though we are rushing through space. Meteorites fall to Earth constantly, but most of them are tiny grains that burn up in the atmosphere without anyone noticing. These micrometeorites drift down through the atmosphere and settle on the ground, adding a small amount of cosmic material to Earth's surface every day. This has been happening since Earth formed and will continue happening for as long as Earth exists. The expansion of the universe means that distant galaxies are moving away from us. This expansion is not galaxies moving through space, but rather space itself stretching. The galaxies are carried along by expanding space like raisins in rising bread dough. This expansion is so gradual that it is only noticeable when looking at very distant galaxies. The local group of galaxies we belong to is held together by gravity and does not participate in this expansion. Ancient light from the cosmic microwave background has been traveling for over 13 billion years. This light has been stretched by the expansion of the universe from high-energy radiation into gentle microwaves. The photons that make up this background have been flying through space since the universe became transparent to light. They will continue flying forever through an ever-expanding cosmos. Rest now and let these quiet facts about space lull you into peaceful sleep. The universe is vast and patient and mostly unchanging. There is comfort in knowing that out there in the darkness, things simply exist without drama or urgency. Space continues on in its eternal stillness while you drift off to dreams.